Hello, everyone. This is the one podcast you've been waiting for. It's the Tangent Podcast.
Welcome back.
Jeff and your co-host Ejon.
Woo!
Woo, woo, woo.
The boys are back in town. By the way, that's what I named the podcast this time. Because
cool.
Hopefully that name isn't copyrighted. Like, I know there's a song named after it. Nah, they can't copyright names.
We're fine.
We'll be fine.
We're
Anyhow,
going to have those videos gone. Oh,
yeah.
well.
Well, we actually haven't gotten a copyright claim in some of our older ones, but the videos are still up. It's just like, we don't monetize because we can't. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, this is copyrighted. It means nothing because we're not even showing ads on it, but it got copyrighted. But the videos.
Hey man, I'm all for people, playing their name and saying that's my work. I'm like, cool man, it's your work.
I don't know, but the
trying
copyright system's a little too much for me right now. Like, it's too long. I think. Like the copyright system's good and all. People should protect their work and all. But like, it's like what 100+ years now, some shit like that. Like Disney stuff made in the 1920s is still copyrighted. Yeah. It's crazy. But I think Mickey Mouse goes out of copyright. Like he's fair use in like 2024. I think.
Oh my goodness!
I'm ready for the explosion of creativity where Mickey Mouse is fair use. It's not gonna happen.
Dude,
it's not gonna happen.
I had to bet money. I bet like they'll find some other way to extend it. I can't.
Disney will just literally walk up to Joe Biden, hand him $20 million. He'll just extend it for 400 years.
I mean, would it even matter?
Not really.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Permanent copyright, but.
Man, it's been a long time. Like last time we were here, we had Trump as the president in the United States. Now we have definitively
whole new thing. Yeah. Man, January is a crazy month. Man.
January's a night.
I remember. Honestly, sorry. We're both trying to talk over each other because we want to talk so bad. You go first.
Honestly, man, I was just kind of like, to be honest, the funny thing is with the Capitol Hill riots, I'm gonna just talk about that because that was the first big thing in January. I was actually out volunteering, and I remember when I got a call from my aunt. She was saying there's protesters that are taking over the Capitol. I'm like, for word? Are you serious? And I was thinking, do you think they could win? It's like, is the military behind them? No. I think we'll be fine. And I just went back home, got some chips, and then I turned on the news and started laughing and having a good time enjoying the spectacle.
When I saw it, I woke up and I went on my phone like I do most mornings for 20 minutes because I am terrible at waking up. Because when I wake up, everyone in my family knows you have to get a coherent sentence out of Jeffrey. Otherwise, he'll just go, "Hey Jeffrey, you awake?" "Yeah." And then I'll open my eyes long enough till the door closes and just go straight back to sleep, just in and out. So I grabbed my phone to wake myself up, and I open a Reddit. It's one of the that or Twitter is one of the first things I open in the morning, and I see top of it people storming the Capitol, and I'm like, what's happening? Is there protests? Because I expected something like that to happen, because people have been talking about it for a while, like Trump and all that. What's it called? But then I went in and you see people breaking down windows and stuff like that, and then hearing later about how they beat that cop to death, and how that people were shot and all that. It's like, oh my god! But I wasn't really surprised because I don't know. It's like with everything with all the shit that's happened this past 4 years. It's like this is a nice capstone to the insanity that's been the past 4 years. Honestly,
it felt kind of in character. When I saw this, yeah, this is America. I don't know why I didn't expect anything else. The funny thing is about it is that I remember when this first happened, everyone was saying I remember people saying oh, it's funded by the Russians or funded by China, and I was kind of like, what are you talking about? People don't need money to do this. We have people with less reasons to go try to storm Area 51, albeit it became more of just like a little block party. But people were willing to do things. I remember, what was that, like 2019? Was it 2019, 2020?
I think that's no. The Area 51 thing was 2019.
Yeah,
it wasn't 2020, or was it 2018?
2019.
God, I feel old. It's like I'm 21 and I already feel ancient. Like when we hang out with my brother's friends and everything, and they're all like 15, I feel old. It's like they're all like talking about stuff, and I'm like, I kind of know what they're talking about, but like, I can feel my age around them, you know? Because they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting my learner's permit. I'm like, oh my god, I'm old. Oh man, but it has been
there's nothing like seeing that.
To think that when Trump came in, like we were their age. It feels so long ago. Jesus.
I remember being there at the Capitol when he got inaugurated.
You were there? Oh yeah, you were there. I remember that. Yeah.
I was there on a field trip to see the president get inaugurated, and I remember when I saw that inauguration, I thought these next 4 years are going to be pretty wild and pretty entertaining, but it's going to be wild, and I was not disappointed, not one bit.
I think we all would have been happy if you were disappointed.
Yeah, I think everyone would be happy if I was disappointed. It's like, it's a calm 4 years. Nothing too terrible happened. Just the regular, good old, bad America
He
stuff.
just sat in the White House and tweeted shit for 4 years. That'd been nice.
Nah, even then, people were mad at him already when he was just tweeting stuff.
Like, imagine if like Covefi was like the biggest thing of his like administration. Like, remember when he misspelled coffee?
Yeah.
Imagine if that was the biggest. I could have dealt with that.
Honestly, that would be like man. And honestly, I think at that point it would just be a meme president, which I mean he was, but still.
I mean, that's what a lot of people wanted from him, you know.
Oh yeah, but I remember people like loved him for the meme, and also they wanted him for him. But he was definitely more of like, out of the two people you can make memes out of, Trump or Hillary, you can make a lot more out of Trump, and he proved it.
Yeah, Hillary's got the like, emails and the like, stuff about the Clinton family and all that, but it's like that's like 10 jokes at most. Trump just like does shit so often you can make more all the time.
There's just too much to go through. You have to be selective at a certain point, or you just follow along whatever the big media is telling you to make.
I remember I saw a site that was like some people like looking at everything Trump's done over the past 4 years, and it's like it's like pages of stuff, and it's like, damn, I don't remember these scandals. It's like, all this happened in 4 years? Oh my god. It's so prolific. Much to deal with. Like, some of the scandals he dealt with, they probably would have crippled a president like Obama because he had, not as many. Now, I'm not a Obama, like, huge fan or anything. He's still, drone striking people. What's it called? But, like, Trump had so many, it was hard to keep up. I think that's part of his strategy, maybe. Like, do so much shit that people can't keep up.
Hey man, that's actually a strategy in tech, man. Like, move fast, break things, and boom, you're there. Honestly, I think in the end of it, the thing I was trying to figure out is like, would he ever be prosecuted for anything he's done? And I thought very clearly, like, John, when has any president been prosecuted for any crime or thing they have said in their entire life? And then I thought, yeah, I was being really dumb. So he'll be fine. I mean, he might.
We were babies, but there was the whole thing with the like weapons of mass destruction and all that with Bush and all that. He got away with that.
Yeah, he got away with that. He got away with what Gaddafi and Libya. I forgot which one did that. I think was it Bill?
Libya was Obama, I think. That was after Benghazi. Yeah. And like
that was
Clintons helped in that, I think.
Oh,
something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, after Obama, now
they've all got blood on their hands, and they all got away with it.
It's a cartel, Hey,
power usually is.
I mean, now Libya, you have like open air slave markets. You can just like see it from a plane. People getting like shipped in human slavery. I'm like, okay, oh wow. But this is America, I guess.
This is the world, period. It's kind of how it goes, unfortunately. But, here's hoping the next 4 years are good. I'm not keeping my hopes high, but maybe they'll be marginally better, I hope. So.
Well, I'm I'll say this, everyone. I'm very much... I'm not trying to be a cynic, like I'm looking for the worst in things. I just try to look at things as they are materially. And I can say, not a lot of hope. I know a lot of people want hope. Only thing I can advise everyone is to just, take care of yourself, find people that can help you, and group up. That's all I can say.
You see, this is the dichotomy. This is what they come for. They come for your cynicism and my hope, battling it eternally. Because the second you start saying, I'm not a cynic, I just went, yeah, are you sure?
Yeah. Funny thing, I actually had I think it was a couple days ago that I was on this group Zoom call for how because of the pandemic we can't just go to clubs or anything anymore.
Yeah.
But we had this group thing about, hey, what do you see the state of the world in the next 4 years? And no one was speaking up, so I was just like, yeah, I see everything going on a decline. America is going into decline. I don't see a lot of things being done to address any of the systemic problems that deeply affect all of the things that have been happening the past 4 years. And because of that, I have very little hope other than us grouping together to make the best of things and change it for the better. And then I was like, okay, anyone else? And no one said anything. So I'm like, ooh. So I wasn't the only one.
Because your cynicism spreads. You're just making it worse. Come on. Listen, even if you're clinging at straws, you got to hold on to something. Otherwise, everyone's going to give up, But,
I still find hope, or at least I have a motivation to keep on living even despite that. You would think that with my overwhelming cynicism, I probably just gave up completely by now. But something about humanity that just makes you think there might be some hope here.
Humanity is like cockroaches. We can survive anything and live anywhere.
Mostly, yeah, pretty much.
And we spread like cockroaches.
Yep. Hey, you're calling me the cynic.
I'm just saying it's one of our abilities. We're very resilient and adaptable. It's one of the good things about us. And bad things sometimes, depending on who uses it. But that's the curse of being human. So, anyways, away from that topic, I want to talk about a very embarrassing thing that happened to me recently. So, I have 5 classes this semester. I've got one more to take this summer, and then I'm graduated. I think Ethan's graduating this semester. He did get, his AA degree in high school. I didn't because I hated math that much, so I bombed out of the course. On one class, Algebra 2. I hated it so much, I just gave up. Anyhow,
hey man,
I'm not far behind at least. Anyhow, one of my classes this semester, it is. Oh God, I'm so sorry if the professor is watching this. I forgot the name of her class. Project management. Sorry. with my professor, I'm not gonna say her name or anything. But she's from India, and she doesn't have a last name. Which I thought was a bit weird at first, but apparently in some parts of India they don't have last names. So, just first name. Even though on the Zoom calls it's her first name then a comma, because it makes you enter a last name. So she puts a single comma because she has to put something. Anyhow, she got kicked out of one of the meetings once. She lagged out, and I became the host because I was the first person in there. And it's Jeffrey's now the host. And everyone's like, Jeffrey, you're the teacher, no! And I'm like, okay, guys, hi, welcome to class. Everybody's getting 100 on their exam next week. Don't read any of your notes. You won't need them. You're not going to take the exam. Thanks for coming. Check out my podcast. And then one of the people in class is like, link your podcast. And I'm like, okay, here it is. I put in our YouTube link. And the professor comes back in and is like, what happened here? What are you talking about? And then I explained to her, like, I'm making some jokes and I had a podcast. She's like, oh, that'd be cool. I should bring it up in class sometime. We should watch some. And I'm just like, no, I swear way too much on that thing. And it's not professional at all. We're going to be talking about, like, anime or something like that. I don't want my classmates to see that. Oh. and then afterwards, like 2 classes later, I had like a question for her afterwards. Like, hey, professor, when's this due? And she's like, oh, Jeffrey, I've been wanting to talk to you about your podcast. You should like take 20 minutes of it out and talk about what you've learned in this class and we can show it in class. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I should do that. But if I ever am forced to bring up the podcast, I'm going to give myself an out right now. First of all, I'm going to wave at the screen so I know with me going through the video to go to this spot. That should show up. Anyhow, yeah, John. I mean, it's so much fun talking about stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, the music stopped. It's so much fun talking about all the stuff in my classes this semester. They're pretty good. But one of them, project management, it's pretty good. The PowerPoint she gives, they're pretty useful. The classes really helped me out because I do want to be a teacher after I graduate, and leading a team, leading projects, it's a lot like being a teacher, but with people who are young and not that mentally developed. I'm sure my professor understands, But yeah, I mean it's a pretty fun class. We got exams and all that. We have to use honor lock, which I don't like because I'm always afraid that it's like malware. That every time I use it, I uninstall it immediately afterwards because I'm afraid they're spying on me. But it's a pretty decent class. Yeah. Thanks. Section's over.
I just realized the honor lock. I gotta just see if I can uninstall all the education software that I've been given.
It's not good stuff.
I don't want it. Like Zoom, I know they said they fixed it, but I don't trust it, even though I'm using it all the time. But honestly, this I'm glad to hear that. This is my last semester, so I'm finally done with official schooling. I'm not done with education, that's for sure. But I think now that I'm almost out the way, I have to head out. I can say now with a confidence that my degree needs a revamp, and I would like to request that the educators please take a hard look at the program and just talk to the students about what kind of things they would like change, because I've been in every class I've been since I was like a sophomore. Everyone didn't like the program. Everyone was like, no, this is not enough. Or the only thing they liked about it was the fact that they got out of their way because there wasn't a lot to do that was substantial to learn. So it was very much of hey, do these things and we'll get you your degree. At the same time, you better find some free time to learn and upskill yourself, because you're not gonna learn much here. I'm like, okay, cool. It's not like you get the benefits of, like, say, a critical thinking class like computer science or philosophy, or the artistic talents of like a pure arts like graphic design or painting or, even the, like,
sculpting. Money knowledge and like economics of like business and all that,
Nope. Like, there's a lot of things where it touches on everything. That's the funny thing. It touches on a little bit of all of those things, and it doesn't go anywhere deep, which makes sense. Like, if you're going to go deep, pick the one that actually...
generalist, then.
It's very much a generalist degree. I would say it's even more generalist than, like, IT even, which is very generalist, but still, you have a little bit more specialization what you're going for. So because of that, you get... I think the good thing about the degree is that you get to learn a little bit of everything, but I think near the end, it should definitely let you have more options to specialize or encourage you to do that more. Which, in the beginning, it just kind of like, hey, you're going to learn painting. I'm like, does this have anything to do with the fact that I'm going to be doing UX or web programming? Sculpting? No. But you do learn how to see things in a design way. So I'll give them that. Overall, was it worth the price I paid for it? Yeah.
that's all you can hope for.
It was worth the price I paid for it, which is practically nothing. But man, I can say I didn't leave off with more money in my pocket at the end of it. That's for sure. So,
but it's the experience, Echon. It's the experience of going to college.
Dude, what kind of experience? You know, let's talk about our experience now that we're about to graduate.
Yeah,
in a pandemic.
I met some cool people sometimes. I remember I talked to a guy when I was waiting outside of my classes. He was from Kuwait. He was like the son of like an architect from there. And he was telling me how like in Kuwait they have to build their buildings like a bit differently. Because if you build just glass skyscrapers, like it's so hot there and the glass reflects that stuff will catch on fire.
Wow.
And he told me how they have to like make the glass like a little bit tinted and like I think he said they have to like tilt the buildings a little bit so it's not a 90-degree angle.
Okay.
And he also said how like I think he was talking about how they have to like ventilate the buildings by like keeping them like a foot off the ground and having under it be completely open so the hot air can go through it or something like that. Cool guy. Otherwise, I didn't really meet that many people on campus. I mean, I met people for group projects in my classes, but it's like you don't really hang around them that much. I mean, there's a few of them I see every once in a while, but it's like coworkers almost. Like you're friends at college. You don't really go anywhere outside with them. I tried reaching out to a few people to hang out with them outside of college, and they're usually just like, "Oh, I'm busy," and they do that like 4 times, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, you just don't want to see me outside of college. Got it." Going to classes was okay. I mean, honestly, I felt like my professors knew like about as much as me, like a lot of the times. Like like this semester, I've got one class. It's my only face-to-face class, and this dude he's just reading off of a PowerPoint that I'm pretty sure is just made from other PowerPoints, like the amalgamation of their PowerPoints, and he just reads off it. But he does it because like there's only 9 people in the class. He'll like walk up to someone like this, and he'll be like, "Yeah, so did you hear about how they have suicide nets in China? Yeah, because they export their like labor so much. The people there, you know, they're like sweatshop workers. But that's kind of a good thing because it saves us money. So we, you know, as a manager and like a business owner, you should consider that." And I'm just like, okay, first of all, that's fucked up. Second of all, he's not stare at me, but he'll stare at you and read a whole page of the PowerPoint, which it's like the full text. It takes him like 5-10 minutes, and you just have to go, yeah, and like I could learn more because this is my human resources management class. I could learn more just by talking to my dad, who's an HR manager, than anything this guy's taught me. Because like, he's so bad, he's terrible, and I'm not gonna name him. He seems like an okay guy. Creepy though, creepy as hell. Like there's one girl in the class who mentioned that she has a TikTok account the first day of class, and he always asks her like, "So what's your TikTok channel name? I want to see you. You know, you say you dance on TikTok. Let me see. Do you do the like silhouette dances? Oh yeah, I've heard about those. Do you do them? What's your TikTok account?" And she just like, "Oh well, I don't really want to share that." And he gets every class. Oh, he's such a creep.
Did you ever tell about your podcast?
No, I don't want him. I don't want him listening to me. He is a weird man. But otherwise, he seems. Oh, he also said stuff like about how there haven't been any wars since Vietnam. How there's been no veterans since Vietnam.
What?
And I was like, what?
What about Iraq?
And the like one guy that I knew in that class, I've had like 3 classes with him just by chance. And he's like, "Dude, I served in Iraq. What the fuck is this guy talking about? I got nerve damage in my legs from Iraq. I'm not a veteran now? What the hell?" Oh, he's so weird.
You see, you're not a real veteran unless you're in a war that the U.S. Took substantial damage from. I guess.
I mean, a lot of people died in Iraq, but we did more damage to Iraq than they did to us. So,
if the KD ratio is too low, then you're a veteran. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, what's your KD? If it's below like 150 0, then you're not a real veteran.
Jesus.
It's like, yeah, I firebombed villages in Vietnam. Yeah, he's a real veteran. I saved Iraqi soldier lives. Get the fuck out of here. Fake glory.
Like, Boo! No one likes the
Uh,
medic. Boo.
Anyhow, as
Everybody-
I was saying before I got on that tangent how much a creep he is, he's a really bad professor, and I feel like I can
Oh.
learn more by just Wikipedia.
You know, I get the same feeling, man. Like, I go to my classes, I'm like, I guess I could have learned this. Like, okay, personal branding. We had this like lecture, like 2 weeks about personal branding, and while it was really like it was informative, I felt like, could you just give me the PowerPoint? And I already have like sites to go learn to code. And, like, even that they don't really teach you that, which I guess makes sense because, like, bro, you have the internet. Why would we need to teach you how to code? I'm like, you're efficient. Good point. But anyway, because of that, I'm like, yeah, couldn't I just done this by myself? And the answer is yes. Like, now, I think this: if you're a young person about to graduate high school today, get an online degree. If you can handle this pandemic life, get an online degree, like cheap one that does your thing. If you can't get your online degree or get your degree online, then yeah, go to university and make good use of it. Because I think what thing I didn't do was, I mean, I did, but I didn't make good use of my time when I could live the university life. Like, I never went to a party, never
Same.
did. You know, I
But
did get to go.
I've never been one for parties, anyhow. But you were saying.
True, but like I haven't even been to like the college football games either. Yeah, and that's like a big thing, I guess, and I totally missed that out. So
I didn't join any clubs either. But I was
You
kind of
didn't?
clubbed out from high school. You know, I was in a club for 4 years. I mean, you were in it too. And it's kind of like,
yeah,
I don't think anything could be as good as that.
no, it isn't. Like, I can say, unless you are in a really tight club, like a really good tight knit club on college, there's nothing like that kind of force or feeling where you just don't have any real obligations in high school, where you can just spend time at a club and just do what you want.
And even then, like, we were such a small club. We all knew each other so well, you know? And even when we
Exactly.
went to the big conferences, we always had people we knew, and it was such like a welcoming thing, you know? It was it was a lot of fun. I actually brought that club up recently because I have a leadership class as a elective, because I have to take 2 electives before I can graduate. 2 more. And they're like, so what leadership experience do you have? You have any experience in public speaking? And everyone's like, no, I'm deathly afraid of public speaking. I'm like, you know, I was in youth and government for 4 years. I've spoken in front of like 500 plus people. I've debated bills. I got up to the governor's desk, went through the House and Senate on a bi-weekly basis. I lead like 7-8 guys through this 6-hour campaign of tabletop gaming. I can communicate with them well, play many different roles. Yeah, how about you guys? And my professor was like, well, that's interesting to know. Do you play war games? And I'm like, no, but I do steal things from them to put in my own homebrew campaigns, just like I stole the whole Fire Emblem battle system from my Japanese game, but added Hearthstone to it to make it not no, you can't copyright it now. It's 2 different things.
Well,
Because as we all know, 2 stolen things put together is no longer stolen.
it's original then, because you have to think, like, who's going to steal 2 different things and put them together? That's hard.
It's harder than just straight up ripping it off.
Yeah, yeah.
But what about you? Have you how like we both didn't go to parties, we both didn't really join any clubs, but like, did you at least talk to people?
You know what? I kind of did, and wasn't the best at it, but I kind of did. And I remember one group I was really tight with for a bit. And then when we had different classes, we still talked for a bit, but we were pretty much spread apart. Aside from that, like, I thought I would gain more friends and reinvent myself in a way. But honestly, it was just more about being honest about being me, and also the fact that I'm an introvert kind of makes it hard for me to like build new relationships very quickly. It's more like I'm more quick to just build and expand on current relationships than build new ones. So that's the thing. I think my only real regret is not going to those bigger events and networking more. And I guess all in all, just like taking in the moment a bit. But I think those 2 years were really informative for me to learn more about myself and the things I felt insecure about, and how to deal with those insecurities, and also realigning how I see the world in a more material way than like the ideals I had. So that's how I kind of feel now. Like at this point, you would think, I think if past me was in this situation now, he would be a bit more scared. Current me is more of like, well, I have a pretty good grasp of what's going on of this, of like the world right now. I'm not saying it's great, but it's a pretty much more grounded grasp of what's going on, that I don't feel too worried about the future immediately. So that's why I feel a little bit more calm now. Like it's my last semester going into like a, what will be the even maybe even worse than the equivalent to 2008, and I still feel like, yeah, I can get by.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a bad next few years.
I know
100 years ago was the Roaring Twenties and all that, and people say it was pretty good. I don't know. It's probably good for like rich people, but
yeah,
it's pretty glamorous time back then. But I think the 2020s might be. I don't know. Maybe it will be good for rich people. I mean, how much that they made during the pandemic, like. It could be a roaring 20s for them in 1930s Great Depression for the rest of us. That would suck.
Well, I mean, rich people have been making like, honestly, it's kind of like astonishing. Like, this is at the point where it's kind of hard to quantify how much Bezos, Musk, and Gates, just for one, not even the industrial capitalists have made, but they definitely made bank during this whole time. Like now, Bill Gates is the largest landowner in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, he owns more farmland because he puts all his wealth into, like, a good amount of his wealth into land.
It's a long-term investment.
Yeah, like honestly, the worst thing that happens is that he becomes a lord and he has a bunch of serfs. In terms of like economy.
I want to talk about something real quick. That just reminded me. Did you hear about the Nevada bill that was put forth by I think the governor, that essentially would remake company towns? Like old 1800s like mining towns, like you know a song like 16 tons, what do you get? No, yeah, that song. Good song, by the way. Anyhow, the bill put forth would essentially allow companies that buy like 70 some square miles, and they put down at least a $250 million and a plan to invest another $1 billion over the next 10 years, able to buy land in a county and make their own county, like their own government, their own sheriff. There's no like things about democracy either, so they just be totalitarian like rulers of that area. So they could buy from the company store. Employees, they live in company houses. Their communications are restricted under company internet. If you do something against the company, you get arrested by the sheriff, and they have complete control. They can do whatever they want in those towns. They're still subject to state law, but they can still get away with a lot, probably.
I mean, if anything, they can just corrupt the governor and state legislator, so they're good. They got the cash for it. They could buy a whole county.
For $1 billion?
Who would probably be able to do this really efficiently? Say it with me now. Amazon.
Yeah, I was about to say like Amazon, or like Gates, or like Musk, like any of those big boys up there. They could do it, but Amazon would be the biggest because they already have so many like fulfillment centers everywhere. They already have kind of down pat what they want to do. Yep,
they have healthcare. They already been into. They got food with Whole Foods and stuff. They got like, honestly, the only thing that they're missing is like, they even have security cameras, so they can just like put in sheriffs and like have somebody like manage like people's complaints, or even just make an app for that, and instead of having to have like a whole actual building. And then honestly, I think it would be to the point where it would look so attractive that you'd be like, well, why wouldn't I want to live in Amazon town? It looks great.
But it's all just like propagandized, because there's already things I've seen online of like Amazon employees like posting things on social media like, I am completely fine, working at Amazon is fun and profitable. It's like, somebody's got a fucking gun to your head. Like the like managers like, you've been talking shit online, say some good stuff or you're fired. And you're like, I gotta feed my kids. You just put out something that looks like a fucking like ransom note, and like that's sort of like Amazon is already doing that, and they're all about union busting and all that. You know, it could be like, you know, like a, I don't know, just like a completely fake thing where people come in and they're stuck. You know, because with those old company towns, you know, the song talks about it. You know, St. Peter, don't call me because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. You know, like you're so in debt to the company. Because like in those old company towns, they sometimes don't even pay you in like dollars. They'd pay you in like company credit. To where you can only use it at the store. And the price is so inflated you have to take loans from the company, so you're stuck forever until you die.
I imagine they'll make you use cryptocurrency that they issue for you to buy goods and services in the town, which they have full control over the currency.
Yeah, probably. Honestly,
that's like they already do that with like certain coins. Like, you know, like I know there's like a bunch of companies that are trying to experiment with that and something like that. So it wouldn't be too far off for me to see that happening. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it's funny when like, you know, the whole capital system is like in decay. It just reverts back to like a lesser form, like
a
because
feudalist system. Yeah.
It reverts to either like a barbaric or like a, you know, more barbaric past.
Yeah.
Whether it's like feudalism or fascism, it just, you know, reverts back because it can't handle the problems that it causes and the contradiction between people that, you know, don't want to be in the situation, the people at the top who need them to be in the situation to keep on making money. So, you know, that's it is. But I think the good thing is after 2020 is I've become more lucid of the fact of this situation. So I'm not too sure if this is like good. Like in one hand, telling people like, yeah, I'm a little bit more aware about where I stand in the world. I'm a bit more conscious. People are going to be like, are you trying to start a union? We don't want you here. Get out. Yeah. I don't think that's like the thing I don't think that's what I'm trying to say. I think what it does is like it helps you understand whenever you're being screwed over, and it's like, you know what, I already know I'm in this screwed up situation to begin with. I'm not going to take this just because you already know like the game that's being played.
And I think a big part of that is actually what we saw recently with GameStop. You know, I saw people all over the political spectrum, you know, talking about how this is a good thing. You know, speaking of people like that, my dad actually, I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but even he was like, yeah, you know, show it to those hedge funds, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, wow, we actually agree on something. What's it called? So seeing all that, you know, I think it did wake some people up to like, you know, the stock market is essentially gambling for like the super elite rich, you know, and now that some like, you know, stupid people on Reddit are like, let's just buy into GameStop to screw them over, and they're all just gambling their life's money away, and then like rich guys go on like CNN or like ABC and they're like, this can't happen, this is market manipulation, they can't do this, and it's like, oh, you're mad other people are doing it now, oh boo. And you know, I was like,
no, I remember like George Carlin, the Greek court, you know, he was a comedian, and I remember him saying like, it's a big club and you're not invited.
Yeah, that's how it is. You know, and with like, I actually got into it a bit. I bought 1 GameStop stock and 3 AMC stock. But this was like when GameStop went down to like $60-$70, and AMC was at like 9. And
imagine you held GameStop stock.
Oh god, yeah. Imagine if I bought in at like 100 and I'm at 400. I'm like, I got a hold. I wouldn't have fucking done that. I would have been, yeah, boy, a nice profit. But you know, I just bought in, not really to make money, because like if I go look at GameStop stock right now, it's down to like $63. It's projected to go up a little bit, and if it ever gets past the like 80 I bought in at, I'll sell. But I'll probably just sell it eventually at like 60, 70 something. Because mostly I was just like, you know, if anyone ever asked about like, hey, were you part of the like GameStop run of 2021? And I said no, I'd feel so left out, you know? I can say, yeah, I got in, you know, a little bit late, but I was part of that, you know? It feels nice. I was part of a historic moment. And it only cost me like $100. Whatever. I can like take that back, whatever. But I think it did really like lead a lot of people to finally see like, holy shit, the stock market really doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, they're not creating value. They're not doing anything. You know, all these stock traders, they earn millions. They earn more than, like, me or you ever will. And all they do is just shift numbers around, and that's it. They just gamble. And it's like, why is that a respected thing? Like, why?
I don't know, man. Honestly, like, you know, I was too young to know about 2008 until now, and to really understand it. Only thing I knew is that, you know, people gambled away people's pensions and life savings and homes, and to the point where now they became homeless. Yeah. And I just happened to be lucky to not really suffer the consequences of that as bad as I've seen other friends did. Like, it was terrible. And it also, but I saw people like got into even more debt, which I severely wanted to avoid when I was like younger. So coming to see this, I think what GameStop really changed me, because I really didn't trust the GameStop market. I thought though that I can at least play it just so that way I can have some way to make money and put it into where I can do it for other things. Even if it's irrational, I can still make money off of something irrational. But seeing this is like, oh, this is so rigged that even if I were to try to make money, you know, rationally, someone at the top who doesn't like my moves can just be like, yeah, no, you're going to sell now. I'm like, I like my position. No, you're going to sell. So it's so, because they have so much control there, I'm like, it's not even really worth it. Like, I'd rather put my money into like Bitcoin at this rate, which has just been consistently growing. Like, after the whole world had their like shock during March, people like, you know, people have been buying Bitcoin. I wish I started earlier. I was skeptical though, but people have been buying Bitcoin. Is now at 40,000. Like, last time it was at, you know, $25,000. Now it's at 40, so it's like nearly double its value. And I'm like, crap. But you know, the funny thing about it is that the reason I didn't buy Bitcoin early on, because I was considering doing it, is because I was trying to test. I wanted to see for sure if it can store value, because I never believed that completely. Like, if I was a very speculative commodity, where it's like, yeah, it makes money, so I put money into it so I can make money in the future. And I'm like, this sounds like stocks, but just less, you know, with less understanding, or like less support. And I didn't want to get in the situation where I can just lose money completely because I didn't understand it. But I wanted to see, and you know, it doubled its value almost, and it's been like, even with the dips, it's been more or less on an upward trajectory for its whole time, a bit exponential though. And it's kind of like, you know what? You know, even with a pandemic, it still held its value and grew. So I'd rather put my money into something like that, or something besides stocks, because I don't think I could continue doing that. Like, right now, I don't trust the market after this whole incident. I don't think I would really try to put my money into it seriously. I would just do it if I wanted to lose money. Really? It feels more like a casino, but actually a casino is more honest, because at least you know that the host, you know, the house always wins.
Yeah.
The stock market makes you believe that
it's kind of the same thing. Like, the hedge funds and the billionaires will always win. But you could make a little something, like at a casino. You might lose $200, but you might make 100. Who knows? You're probably gonna lose, but you might earn something. You know, and like, you know, as a business student, we learn a bit about stocks and all that. What's it called? And it's like, if you diversify your portfolio enough and you like actually work with a hedge fund, because they're good at what they do, you could earn a little bit of money over time, maybe over like 30 years. Or you could do what those insane people on Wall Street bets do and just put down $50K on some random stock and hope it works. Which is not good.
I don't know how they live.
It's not financial. I don't know how either. Like, I go on there and like, I see people like, yeah, I just put down $40K. This is all I have. I took out a loan with my house as collateral. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you don't have any like survival instinct? Like, do you not think, how am I gonna live if this doesn't go? They're like, it's just gambling. But like, it's not face to face where you can see like in the dealer's eyes. Like, you see him, you're like, he knows I'm gonna lose. And he's telling me like, get out before you lose everything. You know, this is just some like number go up. And it's like, our like 8 brain is like, that's not threat, number will go up. And like some people are about their lives ruined by stuff like that. You know.
I just don't understand. Like a lot of I always assume that a lot of these people are like they have a lot of money and they just live in their house all day and they have like some way to like support them outside of like getting a normal 9 to 5 job. They just happen to have like a lot of money, because I can't really imagine a person who's on Reddit a lot and trades stocks all day
Being
and somehow
productive?
makes a profit. Huh?
Like being a productive member of society.
Yeah, like
is
how
on Wall Street bets all day, like talking about like, yeah, I'm a super retard, and it's like, I can't imagine you being like a prim and proper CEO earning like thousands of dollars a day. Like, how do you get this money?
No. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, where'd you get the money from? Like, and hearing them saying take out loans like that. Wait, what?
How? It's like, how do you take out a loan when you go to the bank? They're like, so what do you want the loan for? Is it for like a business, buy land, a house, a car? And like, I want to invest it in GameStop. It's like, is the bank just gonna go, oh yeah, sure, here you go? It's like, no, you think the bank go like, we're gonna lose our money if we invest in this fool. Don't give him the money. But it happens apparently.
I just like that's the same thing that happened during the Great Depression. It's like, wow, these stocks are going so well that everyone has to buy in because they're just going up and through the roof. So they borrowed and used their their house and their stuff as collateral to get a stock because they knew it was going to rise. And then when it all popped, the bubble popped, it all went crashing down. And they never talk about the people who crashed. I don't know what happened to the people who crashed on Wall Street.
I'm about to say, like, during the Great Depression, I mean, I remember in my history book, like day traders just throwing themselves out of windows, stuff like that. But on Wall Street bets, you don't hear about it, because people post about it, they're just ignored. Because like, I went on there like yesterday, and it just turned into like, guys, hold, the stock's gonna climb again, and people are like, I invested thousands of dollars in this. I'm at a negative like 50% loss. This needs to go up. I'm not selling. And it's like, okay, this needs to stop. You need help. And the whole thing is, it's gotten so popular because like 3 weeks ago, Wall Street Bets had like 3 million subs, which is really big for a Reddit subreddit. And it's not even a like default sub. Now it's at like 8-some million. Like, it's exponential growth. And so, you wonder how many people got into this. Like, I did, but I invested like $100, small time stuff, But there's people investing like thousands of dollars. It's like, Jesus.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how they get this money. I'm just kind of surprised, to be honest. But in the end of it, people do what they do with their money. I mean, it's a pandemic. I would try to put something that I felt was a little bit more stable and permanent in its growth.
Yeah.
Because this like very uncertain times. But I think people just like gamble more when they just don't. They feel like they're in like a
when they're uncertain.
Yeah, when things are already uncertain, it's like, well, I mean, if I don't know what's going on anyway, might as well go off, just see what happens.
It's like, what have I got to lose? I don't have much anyways. Might as well throw the rest away.
Okay.
Like I was thinking, I thought for a long time, but how like the lottery is like really immoral, because it targets like poor people. It's people who have nothing else in their life and they're just hoping that like they'll get lucky when the odds are so terrible. There's no point even playing. You're not gonna win the lottery, but it targets people who are so desperate. They're like, well, I guess I can put some money down to just try, because my life is so bad anyways. The only way it can be fixed is if I just randomly win like a 1 in a billion chance. And it's like, damn, that's really shitty.
Yeah, it's like stringing them along with the carrot. I mean, my family still does that. I never did, because when I saw the odds of the lottery, I'm like, I guess because I'm a very like data-driven guy, that when I saw those numbers, I'm like, wow, this is so bad that it's not even worth trying. And I'd rather keep my $1 to buy like food or like a game, something that at least will give me actual happiness, than like the hope that I might win $1 million. And I know the only thing that people do whenever I tell them I don't play the lottery is like, well, then if you don't play, you'll never get the chance to win. I'm like, no, you understand. I think this is where my cynicism helps me. It's like, yeah, this ain't working out.
Listen, if you never get a coronavirus, you'll never know what it's like. Come on. You won't know until you try it. Oh, you'll never know what it's like to take heroin unless you try it. Come on. And it's like, I'm good. You do you. Leave me out of it. Yeah.
Hey, man. It's sad, too, like, drugs. I mean, man, I bet a lot of people... Actually, can I talk about one thing that happened because of this? I've been seeing so many people on the streets, like, so many homeless people lately than I didn't see before. Like, it's almost like in, like, bands of homeless people. And I feel kind of, like, I feel really bad because it's been more than I would usually see because of this situation. Like, I think it's because the moratoriums ended for a lot of people. Though I think in Florida ended it quicker. I don't think they even had a real moratorium. It's like, yeah, screw them. They're done. Yeah. Get out. But yeah, I mean, it's been a lot. Like, I even saw, like, I heard one of my aunt said, like, she saw a family, like, on the street, and I was like, a family? I was like, yeah. And so, like, it was a mother with her kids. Like, mother with her kids. Like, that usually wouldn't happen. It would usually be like a homeless veteran, which I kind of expect, which is already sad in itself. But, then I saw like hearing like a whole family's out on the streets. Like, dude, this is really, like, this is not even acceptable. Like, this is not even, shouldn't even be a thing. But, I mean, this has happened before. I know I'm like, oh, Ejon, this is the first time you heard of a family being on the street not having a home. It's like, no. That, it's just that, usually, and I guess it's kind of me being a bit more privileged saying it's like, usually you wouldn't see it as obvious, at least here. It's a bit more hidden, or you had to go to like certain places, like you go to downtown, you would easily find it, but you wouldn't see it like on the streets of like a very common mall or destination where most people like hang out to like shop. It's just like just there now, and I'm kind of like a bit shook. I mean, I can't do much other than like, occasionally like passing a dollar when I have it, but even then it's like, for one, I don't even carry cash on me most of the time, but two, it's just not even like an issue that like a dollar could solve or anything. It's just more of like, because of these systemic problems and just the abuse, that's why we have these issues. Like, you and I are lucky, like, more or less we've been insulated a lot from the worst of this pandemic. Like, shoot, I got a remote job, like, prior to the pandemic even. But
I mean, I transitioned fully online besides this one class, like this semester. I've been inside pretty much for the past year almost.
Yeah,
we're both pretty much fine, but this COVID, it put so many people out in the streets because they couldn't work. And, people might say, well, then we shouldn't have done lockdowns or anything. But, like, I think if we had a real lockdown for, like, maybe a month and the government had supported people and make sure they couldn't get kicked out and they had food, stuff like that, we could have been done with this. We could be completely back to normal by now. But because we chose such a half-assed approach, like, people are suffering bad. Like, homelessness is huge on the rise. I mean, it has been the past 2 years anyhow. The system's getting worse. But with COVID, it's just it's like a catalyst, It's like the fire is already burning and COVID's somebody like dumping some like gasoline on it, just making it go faster.
Imagine if like Trump did the one thing that was really good, which is like, oh, this is a disease, clamp it down in like January when he heard it.
If he had done that, I think he would have won like re-election. Honestly, like I think he would have. Yeah.
Honestly, I would be like, hey, Trump was bad and all, but he did one good thing.
It's like, I still probably would have voted for Biden because Trump's like a terrible person. Does terrible things. But it's like, well, at least I can give it to him. He, made sure COVID died quick. That was nice.
He kept it down. Or at the very least, it would be like, it wouldn't be one big wave that's still going. It would be more of like a small wave and then later a bigger wave. That's like, don't worry, he'll save us again.
There was like a peak, and then it actually died. Where here, it's like hills. It's like up, go up, down, and right now it's just climbing. Because so many people went to see people during the holidays and all that. and
I
people are
don't
just
even
getting tired of lockdowns and all that. I don't give a
because
fuck anymore.
yeah, like at this point, like most people are like, man, if I die, I die. I lived a good life. I'm like, bro, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, this shouldn't even be a thing. Like, I mean, if we have to die, I mean, I guess so, man. I just want to be able to go to see my family and my friends now. And you know what? I don't even blame them. Like, I still go out and, drive, but I don't like go to places as much as I like to anymore. I'm still kind of like,
Like I hung out with you and then the guys and all that. We were like 9 people. But I make sure everyone says if anything's wrong with them. Like one of our members, I don't want to say his name, privacy and all that. Anyhow, he was like, my brother got COVID. I'm waiting on testing. And we're like, okay, cancel everything. We're not meeting until he's negative. Because even though he was negative in the end, I still don't want to take that risk because like even though we're all pretty young, we would survive. There's things like COVID doing brain damage and like scarring your lungs. Like even if we'd survive, it'd be bad. So I tried to keep it, okay.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if I really did have it, but I definitely felt like the worst pain I've never had before in my lungs, in last March, and since then I've been having a persistent cough, that just like comes in and out in waves. So I don't know if it did any lung damage or if when I become older, it's like, yeah, you got bronchitis now, or like severe like lung damage or lung cancer. Like, oh wow, I wonder how that happened.
I wonder. Well, it's like, oh, you got it like 20 years ago. It's like, oh, what happened back in 2020? I wonder what could have caused this. Yeah.
At that point,
I was thinking like, you think COVID's gonna be talked about in like history books? Because like 100 years ago, there was also a disease like this, but it killed millions. In the U.S., the Spanish flu wasn't even from Spain, by the way. They just called it that.
Yeah, because they're the ones who admitted it.
Yeah,
like, hey, there's a problem going on. That's what happened earlier.
Like, oh, it's your fault. And it's like,
yeah, it's like they said like, oh, it's a Chinese flu. I'm like, no, I think this is like a pretty much a Spanish flu situation. They're just the first one to call it out, and they found out that it was in other places, even prior.
But like,
so it was like
in the history books, it gets like a paragraph because they're talking about like World War I and stuff. It's happened at the same time. But it's like it killed like more than World War I did in like a lot of places. The disease was worse than the war, and like it barely gets anything. So you think in like 20 years, the history book's gonna mention COVID for like 2 paragraphs and talk about like World War III that happens in like a year.
Depends who's writing, but yeah, hey, if anything, shoot, if World War III happens, I don't even think there would be. Well, actually,
humans like cockroaches will survive.
I have a question. What do you think would happen in World War III? Do you really think it would be nuclear bombs, or do you think it would just be a conventional warfare?
I think nukes would be like a last resort. I think it'd be like drone warfare a lot. Like if it's the U.S. versus anyone, they'd have a really hard time getting us because all of our neighbors, north and south, are weak as hell. And we have an ocean dividing us from everyone who could even possibly fight us. So I think World War III would be like India versus Pakistan that draws in like China, which draws in Russia, which draws in the EU. Like a World War I like alliances scenario. But most of the fighting would probably be over in India, Pakistan, Middle East, like over in Asia pretty much. I don't think the war would ever come to the U.S., and if it did, it probably would be a nuke.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I can imagine is if, like, it's kind of crazy to imagine, like, the U.S. is all in airspaces of other countries, but if any one country got even close to the airspace of, central, actually not, I think it's U.S. Comm. Yeah, U.S. Comm. I gotta check the command centers in the U.S. military. But anyway, if it got close to the U.S. borders, there would be like a whole like fiasco.
Down, yeah,
everyone would shoot it down. Shoot, it's kind of ridiculous sometimes when I'm like, no, it is not even sometimes. It's just this is ridiculous that the U.S. has to worry about countries in seas thousands of miles across, and in the ocean and air. That's where it puts its energy in, and yet there's no attention given to things at home. Like, but that's where all the money gets poured into.
Yeah.
And I know the reason why is because of the Mickey Mat the military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academic, think tank complex. It's a lot.
Quite the acronym.
It is. I found that out, and it was really interesting. It's an upgrade from the military industrial complex.
That's the one I've heard before. Not
Yeah.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mickey Mouse is more of like it brings together all the things that happened later in the 20th century, where it's like the intelligence agencies and the academia became complicit in the think tanks that are like arms of the diplomats and foreign policy that are funded by the war hawks. So, those guys, they had their agenda. I think like the biggest thing that makes people a little bit disappointed is that, they definitely probably put in like Biden because Trump wasn't doing his job of fulfilling their needs. I mean, that's why the Mickey Mouse trying to like start. I think they're trying to start a war because, the funny thing. The truth is that a lot of U.S.'s like money comes from like a lot of the wars it fights overseas, like the military industrial complex. You have like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Harris Corporation. They get contracts from the military, and they make a lot of money as long as war going on somewhere. So they are incentivized to make sure this country goes to war, no matter what. And because of that, I can't imagine how they're not trying to plot a new war, even though most people are trying to not do that. Like I know, like Syria doesn't want a war. People in Afghanistan don't want a war. No one. I don't even think like Iran, despite the fact that their general was literally, assassinated.
I mean, if they were going to start a war, it would have been after Trump literally just bombed their general.
Yeah, they don't want a war. They just want to live their life, but they're
probably
just
like terrified. Like they saw what we did to like Iraq and Afghanistan. They're like, keep me out of it. Keep me out of it. And they're just hoping, they don't do to the current government what they did to the, Iranian government back in the 80s, was it, when they overthrew it?
1979, but yeah, you're
79?
close.
Yeah, I was close. Anyhow. Yeah, they're hoping like, please, not today. Let me have power for another 20 years, please. Even though they're not that great of a government, honestly.
Honestly, it's just more, I think the reason why they're, like, those countries are now, like, the situation they're in is because they're just like, we will do whatever we can to protect our people to basically stick it to the U.S. because of all the crap they've done to us. And you know what? They're justified. Like, they're very justified for how they feel. I don't even feel any bad. It's like what happening in, like, Bolivia or, what was it? Venezuela. Like, have you heard of, like, Juan Guaido? Like, for me, because I pay attention to Latin news, basically,
I've heard of what's happening in Bolivia and Venezuela, so I might have. It's just I'm not great with names like that.
Okay. So you have like Maduro, who's like the
I know him. Yeah.
He's the leader of Venezuela. He was elected by their people, or at the very least, he was appointed by Chavez to be like his successor, and people just follow along. And Guaido, he was a former member of like the not cabinet, like the Congress, like a legislator. And basically, he was willing to work with the CIA. He didn't win the election, got kicked out, and when he tried to take power again, it didn't work out again. So now when Biden took power, it's like, we officially announced that Juan Guaido is the president of Venezuela, even though he's not even in the country. He's been in Washington this whole time. So, like, it's kind of ridiculous. They're really trying to, overthrow it because, Venezuela's a thorn in their butt. But, I guess 2020 just kind of got me to see it. Like, the reason I even care about this stuff, guys, is because last year I didn't even really know much about these countries. But I did definitely care a bit because I went to Nicaragua and I was like, wow, how can things be like this? It was both good and bad. Like, in one hand, it was good that the people were still getting taken care of. Like, it wasn't great, but it still felt like people were kind of like getting by with what they had, and there was like some people working together. So I'm like, and then I realized like, oh, there's sanctions and there's drug trafficking that's being done in the country. So that's the reason that they're having a really hard time. Like, if you have sanctions that are preventing you from trading with other people, then you're basically starved. You're being choked out economically. And that was the thing I realized is, like, economic warfare is a real thing, and it is really powerful. Look at Cuba.
Like, like imperialism like that like really didn't end. It's just economic nowadays. Every world power is doing it. The U.S., Russia, China. They're all trying. The like EU. They're all trying to push into other, especially places like Africa, South America, places that are considered less developed. All trying to push in their own ways, and like for example, I for one of my classes I'm doing a project. We had to do it on a nation that was outside of North America, Europe, and like East Asia, and we had to choose it, and we're doing like a whole thing about its economy, its demographics, geography, culture, history, like just a whole thing on that. And I chose Sierra Leone, which is on the west coast of Africa, because I read a book from a child soldier, like his story and all that. Long Way Gone, that was its name. Good book, by the way. A little harrowing to read, honestly. Yeah. I read it at 14. It really fucked with me for weeks. Anyhow, I chose that because I like the book. And looking at it, it's all of their imports and export, well, their imports are a bit more diversified, but all their exports are U.S., UK, which was their colonial overlord, and China. 3 big superpowers. You think wouldn't they export to Guinea or Liberia, their neighbors, not all these people? But it's no, all their diamonds, all their lithium, all that goes to these big powers that start exploiting the nation essentially. And it's damn, 70% of the people there live below the poverty line.
I would like to qualify one thing though. The reason I say different is because with one thing for sure, it's harder for nations in Africa to trade with each other because there's not enough infrastructure that makes that easy. I
thought of that, but I also thought they can ship things by boat, so you'd think they'd at least ship it to other Liberia, which is they can connect it by sea.
No, it's not so much it's not that they don't have the geographic ability to. That's not really the problem. It's the trade and infrastructure that doesn't allow them. You can have a boat, trade a bunch of units of shipment cargo to one place or another. But if you don't have agreements that are made in an easy way, like the EU does, the EU is you can trade whatever you want.
Free trade agreement, yeah.
Free trade agreement,
yeah.
Instead, it's more bilateral agreements. I agree with Guinea and Sierra Leone.
So it's old school trading, where the leaders have to meet, sign an agreement. Well, modern trading between the nation the U.S. and Canada is I don't know, do what you want.
Yeah. Now we have the African Union, which is kind of the answer to that, but it's still kind of being developed.
Yeah.
Now China's been helping with
infancy,
that.
Yeah.
Right. It's in its infancy because it's been kneecapped. It's Africa's been kneecapped this whole past 700 years maybe.
A long time.
Yeah, it's been nearly let's say millennia, honestly, at this rate. But 700 years of millennia has been kneecapped the whole time. And I know one thing that happened recently, China's the bit of the exception, which kind of gives me a little bit hope that there's something changing. And the reason is because unlike a lot of the usual trade where it's just I go into the country, you will trade with me because I have IMF loans that you better pay back, otherwise I take your stuff. China's whole thing is we will give you infrastructure grants, and we'll build it. We'll have this stuff for you in exchange. You get roads, you get electricity, light poles, and all that. We get minerals and resources. You have that's how the trade kind of works. It's kind of the reason why the Belt and Road Initiative works, or what they're trying to do is basically create a network where nations that weren't really developed, and also just nations that are developed that they can trade with, make it easier for all those around the transportation network to buy and sell goods to and from China.
And that's a good thing, and I understand there's give and take. Nothing's ever really free. But it also feels kind of
fair.
I don't know. It feels kind of what I was talking about, new imperialism almost. It's they're going in, they're giving them things, which is good, but they're also extracting the wealth and resources from a disenfranchised, weak nation. It's they can't say no, but then they don't get better. It's it's a good thing, but it also hurts.
How is it? Well, I guess the thing I wanted to say is, how does it hurt necessarily? I know it's a bit of a.
Well,
is it?
Let me give you
more
an analogy.
Yeah, yeah.
For example, like let's take the U.S. and like I don't know Mexico's like relationship, for example. It's like the U.S. undoubtedly helps Mexico in some ways with like infrastructure and trade and all that, but also like it's sort of like an overlord to the nation because like Mexico can't do anything without the U.S.'s kind of say so or go through because it has such power in that relationship. China with a nation like Zimbabwe or like not like South Africa. South Africa's at least a little bit better, but like I don't know.
Say with Zimbabwe.
Eritrea. That's a really small and poor nation.
Okay.
Like if they help them out, it's like that's good, but also they're such the bigger player in that relationship. It's kind of like a bad power dynamic, you know? It's like at work you don't want the manager dating an employee because it's bad.
Well,
you know, there's a bad relationship there. It's just like looking at it. It's good for the nation. It's good for them. Like infrastructure and all that, it'll help them grow. But also, I fear that 30 years down the line, you might see China start pulling those favors out to do things for them. You know, which could be bad for the nation.
I will qualify this. Like, yeah, I'm glad that you said that. Like, it is materially, it is actually giving aid where they need it. Like, countries that need roads, they get roads. And I get that it is there's an imbalance, yeah, because there's one bigger power that is giving more resources to a smaller nation that doesn't really have much influence. Yeah. So there is that. But I think there's a real difference because what China does that I saw differently, and it follows through with their history. It's not like just because the current government does this, it's just more of a historical thing. When China trades, it's more of like, yeah, I am the larger power, and we trade with you.
It's like a tributary
what they don't
system.
do, you know what? I think that's a little bit more fair. Like if I'm going to give a more balanced case, it's kind of like a tributary. I give you stuff because I'm the bigger nation. You things that you absolutely need, and you'll give me your resources. It's a deal. It's not completely like we're even people coming to a table, but it's still a more fair deal. The reason it's different is because unlike U.S. imperialism, where here's a good example: Panama and the United States. All right, so like besides the fact, let's skip Teddy Roosevelt. Like basically, actually no, okay. Worse when it was part of Gran Colombia. Panama was just part of Gran Colombia. The U.S. basically said, "Hey, we want to open up a canal to make it easier for us to trade goods between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic." So we were going to go to Panama. I think it would be great for us to make a canal right through here. So they went to Panama and they basically armed rebels, the Panamanians, and they seceded the country from Gran Colombia. And the Colombians were obviously, what the fuck? This is my nation. You took my land. And then the U.S. Navy is like, yeah, try something about that. So you would think the Panamanians, like, my family is like, we're all happy. And like, hey, we have a canal at the end of it. But the canal is not yours. It is the U.S.'s. You just happen to be the land, and we own this strip of land that the canal is. And it is much different than China, where it's not saying like, yeah, we take over your country, or we come in over here, put our businesses here, and our military will guard our interests and our assets. There's a difference because later in the 80s or 70s, I remember my tia Julie telling me about when the kids, young kids were like saying, hey, we're in high school and we believe that our land is our land because we're Panamanians and we work the land to make the canal work as it is. So they went from school and they left school and they went to the fence to try to demand, and they climbed the fence to say, we are Panamanians, this is our canal. And you know what the U.S. did? The soldiers look at those kids and they pop their heads like it was a balloon with their bullets. Kids were down the street, high school kids. I remember my tia Julie saying like it was a tragedy, and there's memorials about that. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the difference what China is doing is that it's not going as violent as British colonialism and imperialism has been throughout all of its history and for quite a long time. And the U.S., where it basically takes over, nations, has only its assets that it worries about and leaves everyone out to rot and just exploits the resources there for their own interests. China's more of like, hey, look, I understand you're your own little power. I'm not here to take over you. They don't even want that. That's not their thing. And I can say that because in the past when they were like the Qing dynasty and when they were emperors and all
and
that.
the Ming, Han, Song, yeah, all of them.
Right. They didn't come to invade. Like they had their own land where they're basically like, look, we're comfortable. We have more than enough land. This is our territory. Everyone else should just pay in tribute to us because we're China. We're the biggest one out here.
They're the middle kingdom, sons of heaven.
Yeah.
All that, yeah.
Exactly. They're not going to go out into your countries like, hey, we like your resources. We're taking it over and also we're converting your people to be, Chinese. They tried to do that to their neighbors at worst.
At the very
like,
start,
Vietnam.
back in BC and all. Well, they tried Vietnam for a long time. This couldn't get them. But early
Vietnam was like,
early.
Come please be China.
Yeah, but early
no.
China was a bunch of warlords who would go in, fight each other, and go, okay, you're Han now, and it's like, but I don't want to be Han. It's like, here's everything you need to be Han. Your kids will be Han. And it's like,
yeah.
And then they got big enough where it's like, well, we didn't do that anymore. Hey, you, Mongolia, Korea, pay us money or die. And they're like, well, I guess we gotta pay them money. And they did. And I agree.
And it was a system that worked out. It wasn't great.
Yeah, the tributary system was less violent than the British and other European colonial systems, especially things like Belgium. God, what they did in the Congo was horrific.
People really do forget about Belgium.
Yeah, Belgium. Yeah. Anyhow, and I think they did learn that from their past. The tributary system worked, but it's still not great. China really does. I commend them on their PR. It doesn't look as bad. When the U.S. sends the CIA in to overthrow. Well, I'm reading this book recently. It's about this archaeological team finding an Ciudad Blanca. It's an ancient city in the jungles of Central America. And one of the sections is talking about. It just started talking about banana republics. And it started talking about holy shit, they just overthrow a whole government to grow bananas? And it's that's fucked up. But it's China doesn't do stuff like that. They're more thinking PR. But there's still the relationship of essentially the same thing. It's just less force. It's coercion to get resources. You have to admit that it's true though. They're extracting resources from these nations.
Well, yeah. Look, let me explain. I don't think imperialism is equal to extracting resources from lesser countries. That's not imperialism to me. To me, and what I believe a proper definition of imperialism is using force or violence in order to take resources from a nation through violence, slaughter, military coercion, etc. That's how I see imperialism as. Having a person who is in the negotiations more powerful than the other person, but it's a peaceful negotiation, isn't imperialism to me, but it is, just trade. That's just how free trade works. It doesn't always work as balance. And I think if you imagine free trade as something that has to always be balanced between two partners or two parties, then you're going to be missing out what China's kind of doing, where it's not using violence to extract wealth from other nations. It's doing its job of giving us something that the person wants, and even if they are dependent or really need it in a situation where most people wouldn't, they also get something in return. Are they getting a lot more than what they're giving out? I don't know, but at the very least, the countries that are doing this right now aren't getting killed or having massacres right now. They're not having their governments overthrown. China's whole thing is basically, we don't touch anything that doesn't belong to us. This is not our thing. So I appreciate that. I don't think it's imperialism, though, unless there's actual violence about we're going to overthrow this place to make a banana republic.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to agree to disagree there, because I think economic imperialism is definitely a thing. I think this is different than trade, because trade, I think it's different than trade because trade is exchange of resources, of goods, of services. This we'll give you this and then you give us this perpetually. To me, it feels almost like colonialism in a way. The Portuguese would go into Mozambique, and they would build infrastructure. When I was doing my research on Sierra Leone, when the British came in, they cut down forests to make way for. They built a whole road system. They built a railroad to go from the mines to the port. They built up the ports. They actually built the capital of Freeport with 50,000 freed slaves. and all that. And it's like the nation got good things out of it. They got infrastructure, they got change, they got, they broke away from the old tribal chiefs and feuds and bloodshed and all that, and they got stability. But it's also like the people had to listen to the British. And it's like, yeah, a nation like Zimbabwe still has their own government and all that, but I feel like they're indebted to the Chinese, It's like, it's not as ruthless, it's not as bad, it's not as bloody as past imperialism, but I feel like it's just a new, more slick, more PR-centric version. Because I feel like, these systems need raw resources from weaker things, That's why the Europeans even tried to take Africa. They needed stuff from the weak so they could be strong. And China's an up-and-coming player, 100 years ago, they were not that good at all. The empire was failing, and then there's the whole revolutions and all that, all the warring factions.
They got carved up by
the British, the Germans, everybody. The Japanese, the Russians. They were bad. They
had, that's what they call the century of humiliation.
Yeah.
And I, honestly, fitting title, maybe undersells it, but fitting title.
But they're a lot better than they were back then, and they're an up and coming player. They remind me a lot of the U.S. in the early 1800s, or nations, the European nations 100, 200 years ago. They're just starting their rise to power, And when a nation's starting its rise to power, I think it runs out of fuel at home and looks to foreign sources. Now, thankfully, they're not doing what the Europeans did to Africa, just rape and pillage and brutalize. They're being more tactical about it, and it's going to be slower for them. But I feel like it's still looking at a place full of resources and go, okay, I'll give you a little bit if you give me that. Which, it doesn't feel like trade to me, because when the U.S. trades steel to Canada, it's just a trade. There's no favors there. There's no constant extraction. It just feels different to me, And we have different definitions of imperialism, which we're going to have to disagree on. But I hope you get what my point is,
I get what you're saying, but I think one thing I'd like to go for a close off is ask this question. Is it imperialism whenever it's a when it's a richer power or a richer nation trading with a poorer nation?
I think
would that fit your definition?
I think it can be, but it depends.
Is there a way for that to not be imperialism?
Yes, I think it can be, but it would have to probably be things just like exchange of resources, or just. You see, the reason I'm saying it's different for China is because, I read a thing about how, in Sri Lanka, for example, they, took control of a port there as part of their exchange for, 50, 60 years. Taking of land like that feels different to me. It's like with the British, when the British took Hong Kong for 100 years. That's imperialism. Now, I feel like China's doing something a little bit similar. They've been taking little bits of land all around the world, but they've been avoiding India because they're their rivals and all that. But that's where it feels different to me. When they say that the EU was trading with, is Bulgaria part of the EU?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, say they're trading with Syria, for example. I know they're not part of the EU.
They are.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Bulgaria
is part of the EU.
Yeah. Say the EU's trading with Syria, for example. If they're just trading timber and steel, or metals, that doesn't really feel that different to me, But when you start trading land and dividing things up like that, it's where it gets a bit iffy, And I don't know. That just doesn't feel like trade.
So it's the land part.
Yeah, it's land and violence, definitely. Violence is a big thing, but that feels like old school imperialism here. I don't think you'll see that much anymore. At least from more savvy people on the world map. I don't think the U.S. gives a fuck. I think they know they're the world hegemon and can get away with anything. I think China knows that they're in second place right now and they need to be a little more sly.
Well, I don't think it's so much that. I think what makes me believe China's not trying to be sly. It's just more of the fact that they've already gone through the worst of imperialism. You understand the century of humiliation.
Yeah.
I don't think people who have been through that and can clearly remember having many experiences, it didn't just end in 1912 or whatever. It kept on going until maybe until the 80s and 90s. That's when they started getting to their own stride. I think the reason why China has been acting as ways, not because they're trying to sneak their way or trying to be sneaky. It's just because they recognize out of their own experience of a century of being raped, massacred, carved up, drugged up by opium by the UK, they don't want to be like that. I don't think, I think what I didn't understood now is what the history of China, and I think because of that history, many people would probably in China say that they don't want to be anywhere part of the people that did the same thing to them. They have that history. They're not divorced from it. The U.S. has never been a situation where it was the one imperialized. Maybe you could say the
13 colonies.
You can't even say the colonists, because the ones who were there were like, we just don't want to pay taxes to the British. It's not even that they were like being the ones, whipped and enslaved. You can only say that to maybe the slaves and the Native Americans who lived here. That's a completely different.
But they weren't part of the original, agreement. And all that.
Exactly. So the people, like the actual colonists and settlers that came here, they don't really understand that feeling of being the one imperialized or the one that is being colonialized. The UK never hasn't been that situation. China has. And it's because of it. I don't think they would want to do that, because not only is it not in their interests, they don't want to look like the US, of course. They don't want that. They want to honestly put an alternative, because they've been through that and they don't want to. It's like, it's like someone who just got out of drugs. Why would you want to put people on drugs? You just got clean. Or if you were a person who's been bullied in school, would you want to, even if you're super strong and you can like bully anyone, like you got jacked up after, graduating, would you want to be a bully? No, because you remember what it was like in that trauma after being bullied all those times.
But maybe that happens to you. You're addicted to drugs. You get off it. But now you've been through it, you understand the power of it. You understand how bad it can be. And I just have one question before we move on. What about Tibet? China conquered Tibet. Like they moved in and took over the nation. Tibet was shitty. They were like a feudalist system. Bad.
I thought Tibet was part of China for like a long time before.
Conquered it in the 50s. Tibet had kings and all that, like feudal serfs and all that. Like it was like a theocratic kingdom. Like under
they even had slavery.
Yeah, but still, that's still going and conquering their nation, and they're still pushing down on the Dalai Lama and all that, their religion and all that, I believe they're conquered in the 50s, 51, I think.
I'm trying to think. I think what happened wasn't that Tibet was part of China for a while, and then
annexation of Tibet.
After the century of humiliation, they lost it because they just couldn't control anything.
Annexation of Tibet by People's Republic of China, where the PRC gained control of Tibet in October 1950. Looks like... Well, Tibet
they were part of the Yuan Empire before.
Yeah. And but then there was the Ming and the Qing. The Yuan were descendants of Genghis. This was 600 years before modern day. Tibet and China have always been kind of close, and China's always exerted an influence over them. They were like tributary for a long time, but not outright annexation, like it is today. They definitely had a close relationship, but still 1950. That's a little bit after their revolution. If they didn't want to be imperial, why did they go and conquer places? Like if they'd stayed in China, I'd probably agree with you, honestly. Be like, yeah, it is what it is. But
that's under Mao. I can't say that happened under Mao Zedong. So different China for sure.
Well, yeah, definitely different from today with the reforms they made and all that.
Yeah, I mean, like after Deng Xiaoping, made his reforms and opened up China a bit to the West, while keeping in the Communist Party of China. I guess that happened under Mao Zedong. I know the thing about Mao is that he really hated monarchists and slavery. So
I do too. But
so he probably, like, if you're gonna say imperialism, if you're gonna say conquering imperialism, yeah, blame it on Mao, I guess. I don't really have anything for that guy.
If they just conquered it and then freed the serfs and made them all equal citizens, I'd be like, cool, whatever. But also they're pushing down on their religion, It's like the next Dalai Lama has been chosen by the CCP rather than the reincarnation. You know, the Dalai Lama is reincarnated into a new body when he dies, but the next one has already been chosen by the CCP, and it's like, and they're pushing down culture, and it's like if they'd been fine to them, they'd be like, okay, yeah, they just freed the place pretty much. But,
I'm sure there's. I mean, is it a political game with that? I'm sure, but I think there's also two reasons why. Like one thing, the current Dalai Lama is really close to the Western powers in the U.S. Like you have him like coming to the U.S. many times, so there's a clear interest of trying to make sure that when the next guy reincarnates, that the monks go to someone in China, because if they have someone try to reincarnate in, like Bulgaria because of political reasons, or let's say India because of political reasons, then for one, that's going to be used as a leverage to like destabilize China for sure. You can't deny it. Even if you think it's deserved, it's going to be used to destabilize China.
Probably because the current Dalai Lama wants independence. Honestly, he probably doesn't feel he needs to be part of China anymore. Like, is that right? Like, should they let's give him two scenarios. Like, let's say the Dalai Lama doesn't implement the old theocratic, kingdom design and gives the people a democracy. Is it right for them to want independence?
I can't say that historically that he would. That's the reason why. I mean, in this, ideal scenario, and remember, this is ideal.
I know that's why the other scenarios he re-implements the feudal system.
Exactly, because it's the material base. Like, we have proof that he's going to do this. So materially, he wants to go back to the point where he had slaves and did human mutilation and skinned people alive. I'm sure that's what he would rather want to do, because what he doesn't like the fact is that Mao Zedong was like, I don't like the fact that you're mutilating and skinning your slaves alive, and you're committing slavery just because of your religion. And these people have no choice in the matter of being born a serf. So that's the reason I think that the Dalai Lama rather side with the West would like, yeah, you can do that, fucked up shit. I don't care. As long as it like screws up with China, do it. And I think that's the real reason why. Like, that's the kind of the reason why they're trying to look for any place in China. Like, that would be a good way to destabilize it. Whether it's, looking for Hong Kong, looking towards Xinjiang, looking for Tibet. They're trying to find avenues to attack it.
What are your thoughts on that whole Uyghur thing?
I think it's fake.
Really?
I think it's like I think it's the world. Wow. At the very least, I think it's close to like the weapons of mass destruction kind of problem.
But, like, there's been people there though. I mean, there's been video of the camps.
The reason why I don't believe is because most of the sources come back to one guy named Adrian Zenz. And he's like a very Christian fundamentalist who far right was like destroying China as his goal or something like that. Like, search up Adrian Zenz and like, a little bit about him. You could probably see like a lot of sources come back to him, and he's been like put on Fox News and CNN as like the China expert, and that's why he made this whole story of Xinjiang. And because he's from ASPI, which is like the Australian Social Policy Institute. Basically, Australia already has a pretty angry relationship with China, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of like a mouthpiece for them. And because of that, I think what really happened is because you have to understand one thing about Xinjiang. Like in 2014 or something like that, they had a lot of terrorists that blew up. You can go online and look up like, Xinjiang terrorist, blows up or car bombs or like runs over people in China. It happened, and it looks brutal. So China was given like two options. Do you put people in, I'm sorry to have to say this, but like re-education and job training camps, so that way they try to de-radicalize a lot of people from becoming terrorists, or do you like do a Iraq? And that's what's kind of happening. I don't think it's like, what I think is happening is there are camps, but I don't think it's like genocide as people are saying. I think that's kind of like blown up.
But what's the difference between this and what we did to the Japanese during World War II? I mean, they're just doing it for longer. I mean, they're just gathering people of an ethnicity up and putting them in camps because they don't trust them. Yeah, there might have been some bad people in there. I agree with you. There's just like there might have been some bad people in Iraq who want to do terrorism. But I think you'd have be singing a different tune if the U.S. went to Iraq and built camps and for like to re-educate all of the Iraqi people.
No, I would say it would be the same if it was like if it were like we had a bunch of a whole cell, like a whole state of Antifa terrorists. If in that case, like if we had a whole cell of Antifa terrorists that were like blowing up cities in America, in like Portland or like in Oregon, and the U.S. wanted to make a camp to like screen them out, that would be similar. This is in their territory, in their land, so you're having
But
like
it's not
people who could.
everyone though. Like it,
No,
like
no, but
if you take just those who are expressing those views of saying I want to fucking blow up towns and put them in camps, I'm a little more sympathetic. I mean, I think what we do to people in like Guantanamo Bay who do stuff like that is kind of barbaric, but at
oh
least it's
yeah,
more understandable. But just taking people and you hear stories of people who escaped there talking about how like women had to get like forced sterilization stuff like that. It's fucked
that
up. You
I don't.
know.
I'm not too sure about the forced sterilization. Like, it's the kind of same thing where, like, I remember here reading about like how they said, oh, Gaddafi made the men, get Viagra so they can rape women, or the Afghanistan people like went to hospitals and ripped out, the tubes for babies who were just born just because they were evil. I think it's the same situation that's going on. Like, I'm not saying this is like always the case, but there's been many times that the U.S. has had people who stated publicly like this has happened in the country and we need you to liberate me, where it was just found not true. Like I'm very sure this
let's
happened. Like
let's say that you're right. Let's say that all they're doing there is making them change their culture. Do you think that's still right? Do you think making them give up their culture and religion is right?
I can't say that's the case though, because there's people who are from Xinjiang.
Then
They're
what are they
like,
doing in those camps? Just sitting around knitting?
no, no, no. Here's my real theory. What's actually happening? People who were who had the potential or related to terrorists that after ISIS, they kind of like coordinated with the people who are terrorists in Xinjiang. They had to make a choice of whether they want to how they want to approach this. What they decided to do is said, hey, what would cause people to become terrorists? And a lot of times, because they're in the periphery of China, they're not in like the central core where all the cities are happening. They don't have a lot of economic opportunities. Their culture is very distinct, and at the very same time, we have terrorists who are have a pipeline from Xinjiang. No, not from Xinjiang, but from like a lot of the terrorists in the Middle East to Xinjiang. So what China is doing is basically, yes, forcefully sometimes. I'm not saying this is great, but forcefully sometimes it would put people who maybe would not have been terrorists or who would be terrorists, put them into a system where it's like, hey, we're gonna make you learn Mandarin, we're gonna make you learn job skills, we're gonna monitor, see, and make sure that you're not like carrying any knives around. They are monitoring them. I'm not saying it's great, but they are definitely monitoring them. They're checking if they have stuff. They're being a bit more scrutinizing because they're trying to avoid another incident. And because of that, they allow them to keep their culture, but at the same time, they're trying to integrate them into China. Like, hey, we're not saying you can't be, Muslim, because China doesn't outlaw it. That's actually illegal for them. But what they're doing is like trying to get them to be, more in line with the Communist Party, which is kind of like how most governments would do. Like if the U.S. had people from, Afghanistan here, and they would probably want them to not say, oh, death to America, more or less. So
Yeah, and I see where you're coming from, but it reminds me a lot of what we did to the Native Americans after we won all the wars. The remnants and all that. You take the people, you put the kids and the people through schools to integrate them into society, make them speak English, giving up their old beliefs, make them stop practicing the ghost dance, which was a dance the Native Americans did, and when their nations were dying, being like, all the white men will die, we'll take our land back, stuff like that, make them stop doing that. The Americans had the justification of, if we don't re-educate these people, they're gonna, go out and start scalping people again. They're gonna get on their horses and start just raiding people. And then it just utterly destroyed their culture because like taken out of their lives, out of their places and trained to be integrated into the white man's society changed them. There's still remnants of their culture, but the damage is done. And I think 100 years from now, the Uyghur culture will be a shadow of its former self because they have been integrated into Mandarin society. And another thing that makes me think about is like, why do people commit terrorism? And like looking at like the people who commit terrorism against the U.S., they feel threatened by the U.S. They feel threatened by them pushing into the Middle East, and also some of them, their religious beliefs about jihad and all that. But a lot of that is fueled by the conditions of their birth and of where they are. I don't think a person is born thinking I want to go kill people to get like 74 virgins or whatever. It's informed by what they do. And so thinking like these people in Xinjiang, I might have never pronounced that. Sorry. If they're becoming terrorists, what does that tell you about how they're being treated, about what's happening around them? And I think if you wanted to solve that, I think a more, it's like with the imperialist thing we're talking about. China's taking a softer approach, in my opinion. I think they could have taken a softer approach here. If they want to solve the problem, I think terrorism is a thing that should be solved, obviously. But I think this is very heavy-handed, makes them look like shit, and makes me look at people like what you're saying and thinking like, would you be okay with this if it was the U.S.? Like if it was a shoe on the other foot,
I'll tell you this. I'll give you this. If we had, say, in an example, the people who are in the Capitol Hill, would you be okay if the U.S. government had opened up schools, or they just reuse old buildings to take all the people who were close to or were at the Capitol Hill riots and tell them hey, we don't like this. We're telling you how to reintegrate society. They put them to get jobs, or how to be a bit more kind to other people, or to also even to say the things that you're saying in your culture about how this isn't right. We need to be, the supremacy isn't correct. Would you be okay if that was put into a program where these people would be more reintegrated back into American society than where they are now?
Probably not. No, honestly, just because I don't feel like you should force people to do things like that. If they did things that are legal, arrest them and charge them for those things. But if it's someone who just believes that sort of thing, maybe they were there that day, but they didn't go near the Capitol. They just stood outside, with a sign, near the Washington Monument or something like that. I feel like it's a little much, personally. People died. A police officer was beaten to death there. But I don't think taking these people and just brainwashing them is the correct idea. Their ideas are horrible. These QAnon types, freaks. It's just, I don't agree with that sort of action, of just taking people and going, be different. I more so believe you should just ban those people from taking public office, personally. If you're an insane person who believes like this Marjorie Taylor Greene chick who's talking about how Jewish space lasers started the California fires. It's get her expelled from Congress. Fuck her. But this sort of collective action, I guess because I'm just probably more individualistic than you. I don't really view things as collectives like that. It's another difference between us. So
I don't know. At the very least, you're consistent, Jeff. I guess the reason I'll say this: you're consistent. I appreciate that. So
you are too.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I don't like it, obviously, but the reason I think about it more makes sense because I think of the things as systems. If you don't have a real approach, a plan of action that's not just going to attack the one-off, the symptoms, and you're not going to the root of the problem, then you're basically just putting band-aids. And I don't think the Chinese government wants to do that. They want to think more long-term. So, which is why they're doing the things it is.
I just feel that it'll create a cycle, like saying violence creates violence. I feel like this will just create more in the end. That's my feeling.
Oh yeah, I understand what you mean. You're worried that it just might incentivize them to be we don't want our culture to be taken away or something like that.
Yeah.
I will say that if I see in the next 20 years or 10 years that the people or the well-being of the people in Xinjiang are getting better and less terrorism is going down, there's less terrorism than there is before, then I will say it's a success despite the consequences. Because the main thing that they're trying to do is reduce terrorism and promote, the well-being of the people there and integrate them into the Chinese, economy and, the prosperity.
Yeah.
If it's at the cost of the culture, I guess this is where I'm a little bit more willing because, we have to work together. We got to live in this earth together. So people have to give. The Chinese government has to give, and I'm sure they're doing their thing. and I'm sure the people of Xinjiang have their grievances, but I think the one thing I do not like, because this is one thing I don't like, even though I'm very much a systems person, is just the privacy implications of the mass surveillance
Yeah, I
system.
mean,
That's the one thing that I'm
China
like,
and
I
the
don't like
UK.
it regardless.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why they need to do this. It doesn't make any other sense if you don't have this, but as a person who cares about my privacy, I do not like it. I don't. It sounds like, oof. Like, America's already there, but China actually knows how to make that work for them in a way that's just not driven by profit or power. It's just driven on control and efficiency, which is a little bit more creepy for me. So that's the only thing I have disagreement with at this point. But as of right now, I believe in one thing. I think this is the one thing that 2020 taught me for sure. I'm not going to talk crap about people or other countries unless there's undeniable proof, and more importantly, I have real understanding of what's going on. I can't do any more hot takes, man, because I got burned once and about taking a hot take of something I really don't understand, and now I'm trying to be a lot more careful. So when it comes to things I don't understand, or countries like what happened in Navalny and Russia, I'm not even going to touch it, or I don't have a real opinion on it because I just don't understand. So same thing was happening in Xinjiang. I'm not going to assume the worst of any country because of what they're doing. I'm not going to assume they're doing great, but I'm not going to assume that they're being evil. I think that's the best way to describe it. I'm not going to assume people are evil for unnecessarily unless there's undeniable proof.
I'm a hot take machine, and I'm willing to get burned. That's me. I'm also willing to admit my faults,
Yeah.
If I get something wrong, I'll be like, oh, fuck, well, I was wrong.
There's one thing I do need to say, though, which I'm not going to go into this podcast, but is about Hong Kong protests. I changed my mind about that.
I hope you changed it to my opinion. Otherwise, we're going to fight like fucking demons.
I changed my mind to the other thing. I don't think I completely support them now. I can't think I can.
Literally, we've been debating about China for too long, and it's it's just like us just like talking at each other, and we're like, yeah, I don't agree. Let's keep talking. It's and like us talking about it won't fucking change anything either. It's like we're just two guys, It's just whoever like, I think you're wrong. It's like, well, I think you support imperialism. Well, it's like I think you support terrorism, and it's like, fuck, nothing's gonna happen. We're just gonna be on here throwing hot takes out and look probably stupid in 20 years.
We'll find out. I'm not gonna talk about it now because I still need to get my points written down. But there's a lot of things I've noticed that I've been writing down to like a Word doc.
People can probably guess my opinion on Hong Kong just based on my previous points, our general personalities. Yeah. Anyhow, moving away from this point because I don't want to fucking talk about it anymore.
That's more fun to talk about. Literally anything
to talk about. We've been talking about politics for the past hour. By the way, I've got to get off in like 20-30 minutes because I got something due by midnight. It'd take me like 5 minutes to do, but I got to do it before that time. How about we talk about music a little bit? I actually want to talk about it, but
definitely, man.
I've been trying to branch out a little bit more, listen to different types of music and all that. I enjoy all types of music, but I also find myself listening to like the same 6 albums for like weeks at a time. Like I'll just put on like Gorillaz and Daft Punk and be like, this is all I need. I don't need anything else. This is me. I've been listening to some more, especially on YouTube. I'll just go jumping through, and you've probably seen me like linking them in the our D&D Discord.
Yeah.
I'll throw shit up there and be like, this is good music. Listen to it, and it's just some random stuff I found on YouTube. It's been a lot of fun. But I have been wanting to listen to stuff that you listen to, because I've only heard like one. You talked about MF Doom earlier, Nolan. I've only heard one of his songs for us, the one that he collabed with Gorillaz on in Demon Days. November Has Come. Good song, by the way. He's got a really like cool sounding voice, and his mask always looked cool to me. What's it called? But I was wondering, like, what have you been listening to?
Well, MF Doom, Jay Dilla, and Freddie Gibbs. Those have been 3 artists that Madlib, the music producer, has been working with for his career. And I love the he's a really great music producer, just hands down. He's a great music producer, and I really enjoyed him. So that's the reason why, like, recently when I found out MF Doom died, actually, can I tell you, when I found out MF Doom died, I was, it was New Year's Eve, because that's when they released it to everyone that he's dead. And I was alone on New Year's Eve, checking my phone on Reddit, and found out that Doom died on, like, a Reddit sub that wasn't even dedicated to Doom. It was like, politics. And I'm like, hey, the legend is dead. I'm like, what? You guys listen to the same music as I do? And then second of all, he's dead?
Jeez.
So when I found that out, I was just kind of like, I remember, I think it was like 10 minutes till, midnight. I was just kind of like, I was crying and listening to, like, my favorite albums from him. Like, I'm just thinking, like, thank you, man. I appreciate it. MF Doom, for me, what I liked about him is that, unlike a lot of rappers I've heard, he's like the one rapper that's kind of like, how should I say? He's a character, really. He's really much a character. He doesn't really feel like he's a person, even though he is. But because his persona that he creates on stage is so captivating, it has a world of its own. Like, he creates characters where, like, I think his name was God, is losing my head right now. There's this one character where he's basically an alien. This came from outer space, who's like a master rapper, who is just like, hanging out on Earth. And he also gets into fights with MF Doom over girls too. Like, there was one song called I Need You in the Background. Or I forgot. But it's basically him ranting to his girl after hearing from his friends that MF Doom cheated with her on the guy, and they're the same person. So it's kind of like, what? He's dissing himself. I'm like, this is crazy. So, and he doesn't just do that. He has like a whole villain persona that's really great that I enjoyed. Madlib, he has really great music in terms of how he puts beats together sonically, and it really feels kind of like he puts you in his own little world where it's something that's really special. It's very much in the line of hip hop and like old school hip hop in some way, but it does a lot of new things and doesn't stay trapped into one era of the genre. And so when I see him working with like Freddie Gibbs, or like, he can go from like jazz to like kind of like new wave, kind of psychedelic, with like really good horns, to like really hard hitting beats and trap. And it's kind of like, I like that, but he also has this kind of variety that's like jazzy hop that really is where lo-fi hip-hop gets a lot of its flavor from. So because of that, I've been listening to Bandana by Freddie Gibbs. It's really good. There's this one artist called No Name. I think it's No Name, but it's just one like words together. She's really nice. She has a nice voice. I liked it. Saba, I listened to him for a while. He was really nice. He has this album called Care For Me, which is basically talking about how his cousin was killed, and talking about the good memories he had with him. So that's really nice. And also, and I think that's been mostly how my music has been for a while. And I think the thing that makes it really nice is listening to a song by Madlib going for a night run, and I just see the lights passing by. Like, there's this song called Soul Right. That's like, if he even gives you the instrumental. That's the thing I love about Madlib. He will instrumental for the song. Just on YouTube, you just play it and you just hear the horns and the psychedelic. You could just make that go really slow, put like at 85%, and just drive for like 4 minutes and put it on repeat. Yeah. So
yeah,
I love him.
I'll check some of those out. Yeah, I googled them. I'll probably listen to a few songs as I'm doing my work. No phone. I'm not talking to you. I said the word Google and it opened up.
I will say this though. I could go for some rock, a little bit of rock and roll.
Ooh, okay. Let me. First of all, like old school rock's good, like Led Zeppelin and all that sort of stuff. It's
okay.
Good. But a band I like because they do stuff about like historical stuff is Sabaton. They have some pretty good stuff about like battle, stuff like that. Like if I open my thing, they have a few albums. Like their one I like the most, The Last Stand. That's about like last stands. They have one about the Spartans. They have one about I think it was like World War One, the Serbians. They have the Blood of Bannockburn, one of my favorites because it's a metal song with bagpipes in it. It's about the Scots and their like war rebellion and all that. It's really cool. Good songs. And one of their albums, because they're Swedish, is all about like Swedish history. It's probably my favorite album they had. It's Carolus Rex. It's really good. They also have it in Swedish. But yeah, like just a lot of the old schools, like Queen, like early Queen before they were less poppy, is really good. Yeah, you could just look up like famous rock songs, listen to that. But Sabaton is a band I actually enjoy a lot. I actually saw them in concert. They're so much better in concert, especially because the lead singer, he does this like he like jokes around with the audience and like makes fun of his band members. I remember like one of the band members just like jumped on him once during like in between songs, and just started like grabbing his nipples and stuff like that. It was fucking weird.
What?
And like there was one song that like the main singer really didn't want to sing that time, which is called Swedish Pagans. It's one of the most favorite like famous songs. It's about Vikings, you know. And he's
right.
like, because he's Swedish, he's like, we are not playing Swedish pagans. That sounds more like Russian. Whatever. And then the guitarist starts going like, oh, whoa, whoa, because that's like the main chorus of the song. And then the crowd starts doing, and he looks around like, are you for real? Fuck. Okay, we'll sing it. And then he's like, I'm not doing this next time. You do this to me in Georgia, I'm not doing it again. And then they sang the song, and the whole crowd was of them. It was so much fun. They're good. Unfortunately, the first time I showed it to my dad, he thought they were like a skinhead band because they have a song called the Final Solution, but it's talking about like the horrors of the Holocaust, about like how many lives were snuffed out, and how many people died, and how bad it was. But my dad saw the title and was like, "What the fuck are you listening to?" And I'm like, no, it's the sad song on the album, please. And then like, you know, one of the other songs about how like the U.S. like it's called Screaming Eagles. It's like the U.S. like taking a French town from the Nazis, stuff like that. It's a good song. I'd recommend them, especially Swedish Pagans. I fucking love that song. What's it called? Yeah, sorry to go on that tangent. I just really like Sabaton. They're a good band.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I guess now that it's my, you know, one thing I gotta say now, I'm about to like, I want to like touch on the fact this is actually the last time I'll be, well, actually, I don't know, maybe I might go to Masters and I don't even know about that. But this is the last time I might know I'm going to be in school, and I guess the one thing I definitely say now, one thing that happened is I moved back to like my apartment here in like Orlando because I really liked having the independence I had in college I didn't have before, and I think I kind of missed that in a sense. Like I can just go to bed at whenever I want, but that's not really the real problem. It's just more the fact that like I could just go places and it feels nice. And I think that was the one thing I definitely enjoyed about college. I just had more independence, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. But at the same time, a little bit, you know, not, I guess, anxious or worried in the sense of like you don't want to go to extreme. You know, it's like, yeah, I want to be more independent, but at the same time, I don't want to be like left out into the dirt necessarily right now. So because of that, I'm looking forward to it. I hope that, you know, getting out of, you know, college and graduating, I'm happy to finally be able to accomplish what I set out to, which was getting out without going into debt. And I mean, that was the hardest thing I could. It really is a really hard one to do in America.
Yeah,
I gotta say that.
I'm in debt, so I'm gonna do. Hey, Joe Biden, come on, get rid of the debt, save me. That'd be nice.
Joe Biden, there's one good thing. I will actually give you one dub. You can like give everyone a fat $10,000.
As if in your dreams, we're gonna get that 1,400, and he's gonna go, I did enough.
Yeah, it's like or actually no, worse. Here's what's the funny. Here's the funny one. In the interest of bipartisan cooperation and helping reach across the aisle, we decided to meet the money at $700.
Mitch
That should be enough.
McConnell just like, yes, I've done it again. I've caused more
That should be enough for
suffering.
people to, like,
Yeah.
that should be enough for people to buy, like, Gucci belts and crack and whatever. It's
Yeah,
like,
they're just like a Bill Gates on that show, whatever, and they show him like a banana, and he's like, "Isn't that like $13?" They're like, "Oh, the people, they can survive for $700 for like 2 months." Ugh.
dude, it's really. I mean, I guess it's not surprising because he came from rich parents, but it's kind of like, how do you not even know? Like, I really wonder how.
I think it's just a difference in mindset. Like you get so far removed from the common person, you don't even think about it anymore. You're a politician or like a rich person for life. And you just go, well, like even if they were poor at one time, they just don't think about it anymore. You don't think they're a different person.
That's what I feel like AOC is becoming too.
I hope not.
One thing I like to say, I'd like to ask them, how do they plan to survive all the crap that they're causing?
They're gonna
Like,
die.
that's the thing.
They're all old.
Not even that, but like the ones who have their kids, like that they try to like pass their wealth on to, because they do that. Like, how do they plan to survive?
I feel like to be a politician, you kind of have to have a lack of empathy. To be like a successful politician, you kind of have to be like a soulless person almost. And it's like people who do, I think, have some empathy. People like Bernie, for example, they lose because they're not willing to like do the shit that people like Trumps and Clintons and Bushes will do to win.
Well, I guess so. The people who are so far removed and don't have any empathy. Well,
Those
I
are
guess the one
leaders.
thing. Those are the leaders in democracies. I guess that's what you get for democracies.
Well, hey, it's a terrible system, but it's the best of the worst.
Maybe. Well, thank you everyone for listening.
I'm just not gonna open that like anti-democratic can of worms. We'll save that for next time. The Tangent Podcast in like 6 fucking months when we do it next time. I hope not. I hope it's like 2 weeks from now, but it probably won't be. Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
It'll probably be like a month from now, maybe. We'll see. Anyhow, this is your resident hot take machine and your resident cold take machine signing out of Tangent Podcast. Thanks for showing up. Make sure to tune in next time and stay healthy, stay happy if you can. If you're not happy, try to get healthy. Try to get healthy. It actually helps.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends. Talk to your parents. You matter. Take care of yourself, no matter what anybody says. See you around, people. Drink water. It's good for you. Bye. How do I turn this off? End stream. Bye. All right, it's over.